Hey y'all, I'm Kelly Moody and you're listening to the Ground Shots podcast, an audio project exploring our relationship to ecology through conversations and storytelling with farmers, herbalists, craftspeople, naturalists, artists, and more. Hey y'all, it's Kelly. Welcome to the Ground Shots podcast. I'm currently recording this in my hometown of South Hill, Virginia, where I'm currently visiting my family for the first time in about a year. I am sitting in the barn at my dad's farm. No one's around, and just reflecting on this place and how much it's shaped me. So been really sweet to kind of help out my dad planting his fall garden and connecting with this land here, taking it all in. Really excited about sharing this episode with you. It's a little bit different than some of the other ones. It's a little more music focused. It's a conversation with Epona Heathen. It's actually this moment in time at the Saskatoon Circle Gathering out of Twisp, Washington, where I traveled to this summer to connect with friends and learn more skills. And Epona and I sat together also with Rainan, her child, who's super sweet and amazing. In this conversation with Epona, we talk a little bit on octave mandolins, which she plays, and her relationship with the instrument. We talk about some of the seasonal and life cycle themes that inspire Epona's music. We speak about Epona's journey writing music for Rainan and connecting with her ancestors for him. Epona's Irish and West African roots in the mountains of western North Carolina. We talk about opening up to the love of the land and how it faces us with the grief of its loss. We speak on Epona's relationship with the Arrowleaf Balsamroot plant, of which the main song featured in this conversation is about that plant. We talk about sitting with the land when grief arises. Epona also talks about some of the wisdom that Phoenicia Medrano shared with her over the years. Epona mentions an experience she had in Hell's Canyon. We speak a little bit about tending the wild food gardens and the hoop in the West. I'll link anything relevant to this conversation and music share in the show notes. I listen to the song about the Arrowleaf Balsamroot sometimes on repeat. And it just really moves me, so please do enjoy. Burn, burn with the light that reveals our faces. Burn, burn with the heat that will warm these places.
You lost your little gun I gave you. It was in this basket.
It's okay, you hold on to it and give it back to me when you feel like it.
What?
Hold on to it.
I can hear the birds.
Yeah? Oh,
Yeah.
good.
That's what I love about this. It's like I do all these different field interviews and I don't know all my birds, but like, the land is kind of captured in it too. Mm-hmm. Somebody can ID the birds, tell me where I am maybe by that.
See how rough my voice is this morning. I really screamed a lot last
That's
night.
right, there's a
Bird!
because you guys are too big for
Or what?
them to carry.
I love all the goat sounds last night while Kenny was arm wrestling.
Pretty good. Okay, let's wake each other up. was kind of excited about doing it around the fire because then you wouldn't be able to just hear how bad I am at mandolin yet. Like I do a lot of like finding chords with long pauses, you know.
I think
It's cool though. I love you, Persephone. We're working it out.
I like want one of these now. Like, oh my god.
They're amazing. Really good friend.
The little moons on there.
Yeah. This was built for me by a luthier in North Carolina.
Really?
Mm-hmm. It's like an epic gift by my former partner for our 9th anniversary, who I like had been wanting an octave mandolin forever, just for years, and I was like, I'm just gonna get rid of all my other instruments except the piano and like make it happen. But it's one of these instruments that like they just don't, none of the low range ones sound good. None of the factory ones sound good. You know, to really get a good sound, you're going above $1,000 at least, and that's even with factory made ones. So I was like looking around, like feeling it out, and like I'm pretty cream of the crop with the things I like. So I'm like, oh, these luthiers, you know.
What's the name of the person that made it?
Bob Grenant. He's part of the skills community out there. He and his wife.
Heard of him. Yeah.
He's really sweet. I didn't know all this, you know, when I finally looked him up. And we started talking about things. I was like, I don't really want koa or anything. I want like a wood that's like, I want woods that I know, you know. And he was just like, oh yeah, well I have this sink cedar or swamp cedar, I guess they call it, that I harvested like 50 years ago and da 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 da. And then I started talking about being into the skills and stuff. And he looked at our Instagram and then he was like, did you know that me and my wife were like some of the like old skills people? We like nap and tan hides and da da da. And I was like, oh good. I like to picture you 40 years ago harvesting these woods. So yeah, he did this
special
black walnut for the
Oh my
back.
god, that's amazing.
Isn't that beautiful? And for the sides. And then did curly maple from down there for all of this. And, you know, the ebony's the only thing that it's like, no one gets away from ebony. I mean, maybe they do, but I don't know how. And so then this is the black walnut, the curly, and the ebony as well.
And it's called an octave mandolin?
Yeah, well, this is technically an Irish bouzouki, which, I mean, they're essentially the same instrument, except that this has a slightly longer neck. And from like, I think it's like 21 3/4 to 23 or 24 is considered the neck length that you'd call an Irish bouzouki, and like these could even be like this much shorter to be considered an octave mandolin, as long as it's got enough neck and body to have the octave drop. But with Irish bouzouki's, they tend to not tune these the same, but rather have them be an octave separate from one another, and that's the main difference. So yeah, but I call it an octave mandolin most of the time because a lot of people don't know what Irish bouzouki's are. And it's made to be played as a melodic instrument, but I knew I would end up playing it more chorded and just trying to find out my own way with it so that it could be a good accompanying instrument. And it's great.
I've like played, saxophone and clarinet growing up.
Cool.
And then I've tried to catch on to guitar, but I'm left-handed too. I don't know, I just haven't quite got it, but I really, really want to play something with strings. Because I kind of know the basic, I mean, I was like in orchestra and stuff growing up, you know, so I know like about music, but I feel lost on the guitar for whatever reason.
Well, because the guitar, you know, the way that it's circle of fifths versus circle of whatever the other one is. Basically, it's like slightly different than all of the classical instruments in the way that it works. And so it's one of those instruments where like if I try to follow someone, I get really confused. And the first time I picked this up, well, I mean, I don't know theory really, but the first time I picked this up, whatever it is about the way that these instruments, it's the same thing with like cello and stuff, right? Maybe they're the ones that are on the cycle of fifths, but I touched it and suddenly like my fingers just naturally were making really beautiful chords, and I could like follow a melody really easily and find where all the notes were, you know. And I was like, oh my God, like you speak my language, you know. Guitar's been really challenging for me to understand.
I was hanging out with Tamara Wilder last week before coming here, and she has this left-handed guitar that she's trying to sell. That's like made, like even this part of it is like made for left-handed. What is this called again? The bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's strung for a left-handed person, and she's like, yeah, it might be easier for you if you play it that way. And so I've thought about buying it from her. It's pretty cheap, even though
If
it's
you've
a
never
nice
played
guitar.
a stringed instrument, they say for left-handed people you really should. Because I'm left-handed, but I just
Yeah.
learned on right-handed instruments, and so at this point I absolutely cannot turn my brain around. But most
I know some
left-handed people
stuff
say
on
it's a
it.
lot easier.
Yeah.
Rainan, I'm going to make my first attempt at playing this song, which mostly will probably be me getting a little bit of tobacco out of my lungs. Why was I avoiding you when all that I had wanted for days, whenever my wandering sight had passed your way, is for to gaze upon your exquisite face as you sigh the evening into the day, in the illuminated presence of your sweet embrace. By grace my troubles pass away. Our Lady of the sunflowers, multifaceted jewel giver, flowing through these hills like a golden river. I was lost, but now I'm a believer. Why was I avoiding you when all that I had wanted for days, whenever my loneliness had taken my breath away, is for to inhale and imbibe your emanations, and in so doing be freed of my many isolations, in the illuminated presence of your golden nation. By grace I sing my exaltation. Our Lady of the sunflowers, multifaceted jewel bringer, flowing through these hills like a golden river. I was lost, but now I'm a believer. Our Lady of the sunflowers, multifaceted jewel bringer, flowing through these hills like a golden river. I was lost, but now I'm a believer. Nothing like a dirt mover scraping along the end of your song.
It's all right. Will you just talk about what it's about on air, or if you want?
Yeah. I wrote this song for the Arrowleaf Balsam shortly after they had bloomed this spring. while I was having a particularly difficult time in my human relations that was keeping me a bit cut off from my plant allies. And I'd been looking to her for days, knowing I needed to go sit with the flowers and that they had something that I really needed to feel better and more balanced. And yet being imbalanced, I just couldn't get there until one day a voice in me finally said, just shut up and go sit down. When I went and found myself a place on the hill and fidgeted a bunch until I finally sat and settled. And then I looked up into this one flower. It was evening, and they really were just like exhaling their amazingness and holding that sunlight. And I looked into her little face and I just started bawling, and had a really beautiful experience of being held by the really loving maternal open arms of that particular plant. And then wrote this song for her. And for those moments when the medicine we need, we resist. If we can start recognizing those times, maybe it won't take as long for us to get over it and just go be with them. Because it's so worth it.
Wonder why we resist it, you know?
Yeah.
Because it comes with that fear and that love at the same time, you know?
Yeah, it took a while musing on that, like, because once I was there, it's people's fear of evolving, you know? Because there's these ways, even if I think that I've dedicated my life to trying to serve the earth and to awakening and being, you know, a real human again, I still have all these little things I do to procrastinate, you know? Things that confuse me, that I let confuse me over and over again or distract me over and over again. And, yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me.
What's the mystery of what it's going to look like when you morph? It's scary, that unknown, you know, like morph out of those patterns that are there, even though you know they're not, but they shouldn't be there, or like they're not good for you, or they need to shift and change, but it's like you get comfortable in them, you know, and like, okay, it's scary, even though once you get over the other side, it's you're like, all right, this is what it is, you know.
As you're saying that, it makes me wonder too, because right, we're trying to heal from this isolation, that our sense of identity is fixed in the body, right? And so if I'm having problems, my fixed identity wants to process that on its own. And there's this innate fear on some level that, like, if you really do belong to a whole community, the whole community is your identity. So those flowers are, it's not that they're just there being pretty and some part of me knows, oh, maybe if I sat with them, they'd give me their medicine. Even that's so narrative and, like, separate. But it's actually this part of myself that's like, just let me hold you. Come over here and let me hold myself and make myself feel better. Because I care, I'm invested, we're all one. You're obviously having a hard time, like, I am the solution, you know? But that fear of truly identifying with your biome is something that my brain definitely, like, kind of has this nervous tick away from, because it's like, no, wait, but I'm an ego. No, wait, but I'm this person. Like, I'm Epona. That's what I am, and I'm interacting with everyone else. But it's like,
that's your body too.
Yeah.
The sea of yellow flowers is also your body.
Yeah.
Or that little spot in the back of your psyche, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, flower people.
But you should have said some stuff this week to me that makes me think about that. Just like that we're domesticated, you know, out of that recognition, and things that feel out of balance and like feel like sickness are because of that. And I've talked to her a lot about some things this week, like different like issues that were coming up with other people, and she's like, it's just, you know, in the end, like, just go and sit with the land, and it's like you'll find everything you need, you know.
Yeah.
It's all there.
She always used to say that some of her first, like, though she had elders in the Native community who gave her the bundle that she carries, she also, her great elders were the rocks, just like being heartbroken and crazy, laying on the ground in the desert with rocks, and suddenly the rocks like start imparting to you the things that you need to know, you know, and you're like, wow, I really have gone insane, meaning out of sane, you know, here I am out here with the rest of you who are like, well, while you're here, you know, and the beauty in that, so good.
Yeah. I've been there quite a few times of like, well, I feel so in the sense of desolation and sadness and like desperation, but I want to be on this earth because this earth is a part of me and it's so beautiful, and like if anything, I'm here for the land, you know, because it is all of us. And like have ideas for other songs about plants and stuff like that. 'Cause I feel like that could be like a whole album
Of plant
of
songs.
your like plants of your land.
Yeah, I mean, the album that I've been working on is a mixture of songs about the cycles of the year. So either songs that are about plants or harvest, animal harvest. Like I have a song that I wrote for him that's a lullaby that came to me when I was in Buffalo Country when he was 3 months old. The first time we brought him out there. And basically about that in life cycle, like going back to like a song that I wrote when I wanted to conceive, and then the first time that I miscarried, a song that I wrote when he was for birthing, the lullaby I wrote for him, and then sort of this like upon getting his diagnosis and realizing he's gonna die like young, that going through that grief process and coming around to death and starting to think about death and ancestors. And I wrote this song on the piano this last year that I finally finished. It was like one of those songs that was really painful to work through, basically realizing that I had this huge desire to connect with my ancestors. And when I finally sat down and like cast a circle and really opened myself up to them, what I mostly got back was like, why? Like, why do you want to connect with us? Like, this is confusing. You've never cared before. We don't really have a connection to one another. Not that I never cared, but it was paltry. You know, it was pictures and basic foods, but not like an attempt to actually connect with entities. And that was the first time I realized, I was like, because my son's going to become one of you. And if he becomes one of you, I've lost him. So I have to change my relationship with you if I'm going to be able to maintain a good relationship with him. Like, I have to change this. It's necessary now. Whereas before it was like, we all want to feel less lost. And so I had a very selfish desire that didn't make sense, but then it suddenly did. And so yeah, I basically have a series of songs that both address my relationship to the earth and to the life cycle of her and that relationship, and then actually within the human family and all of that. And yeah, I mean, some of them maybe don't. My first album was very conceptual and tied together really perfectly in my mind, the way that all the songs flowed. This one I don't know so much yet, because there's definitely like, but it is, you know, it's just like, it's like this mixture of like being in love with the earth and with the mother, and grief about, like, I have this song that I wrote for the coyote people when my neighbor killed a pack of puppies. So it's a lot of that. It's both love and grief, just a whole lot of love and grief, just worked in, you know, and just naturally cyclical, because you write songs about where you're at when you're at it, right?
The more we open ourselves up to the love of the land, it's like, then we also are faced with the grief of its destruction constantly too, you know?
Yeah, for sure. That's the truth.
We're at a standstill. He doesn't want to get out of his stroller, and he also only wants mayonnaise and bread.
You can't just have mayonnaise and bread. She made yummy eggs. And you got to get into your chair to eat.
I know.
Do you need me to do it for you? You want me to be the one who pulls you out of the one experience into another one?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. I will come, be your carriage into a different part of the morning. It will be nice. You will eat yummy food and you will feel so good. Oh. I don't know, you've been feeling slow and gentle in your ways this morning.
Do you feel like the ancestors that you were in communication with, that were wondering why you cared, that you have more connection with them now, like that they are warming up to the idea?
That's a good question. I mean, I feel like I've received, after that experience, the rest of the song came, and it was with their help, because a lot of my muses are of that realm.
Yeah.
But then also it kind of opened me up to like
Yeah, that's
Just my
alright.
ancestral work's been
Still
so
over there. We
interesting.
got to
So
follow
I
us
went
right
did the
now.
whole 23andMe thing
See, look,
years ago,
it's gonna be so yummy.
and
Tell me if you need help.
found out
What is
it was like,
mine?
you know, it's got all the percentages and
Mine.
stuff, and
Yeah,
I had
you
a
have
higher
the white
percentage of
flecks.
sub-Saharan African than Neanderthal, and I was like, that's off. And I looked at it, and it was like, oh, you have this like black ancestor, and I was like, okay. And I don't know why, but at the time I just kind of like, I was taking in all this information, and it was like not that far back, basically. It was like one ancestor, not very far back. And I kind of set it aside, and then this spring, again, after doing all this work, because it was at Samhain last year that really grounded out for me, and I spent the winter doing like really deep work and asking for ancestral help a lot in the work that I was doing, especially with him and like medicine plants. And then this spring I went to visit my mom, and she was like, I just did the 23andMe thing too. She was like, do you know that we have like 100% black West African ancestor who's like just our like great great grandfather or grandmother? And I was like, yeah. For some reason, when I first read that, I just like tucked it away into like, maybe one of my Swiss ancestors did da da da. And as I was saying it, I was like, first is like my North Carolinian family, you know? And then we talked
Makes more
about,
sense in North Carolina.
I know, it makes so much more sense. And I was like, did we ever have enough money to keep slaves? Like, we've always been really poor, you know? And she was like,
Well,
I don't really know. It's like the whole broken thing. Like, so many of them are dead, and we only have so
That
much
stuff gets
information.
Tucked into the secrecy realm too, you know.
That's right. And so that was, I think that leap with that information was the first time that I really recognized, like, I don't have access to history. You know, I don't have access to this super rational, provable way of talking about my reality. And I've been told that it's inherently flawed or something to pity if I should make up stories about my reality. But with that particular one, I was about to go sit with ayahuasca, and so I sat with that weekend. I didn't think I was going to, but I was just like, what is this? Like, part of my ancestry, you know? And what I realized was, as much as I understand genetic testing and stuff, it's all mother lines, you know? They can't tell you anything about father lines except the combination that's in another mother. And this person was not, they were 100% black. They weren't part black. And so that ancestor was it was a woman, is basically what I'm pretty sure is true. I don't think they could have told me that there was 100% African male somewhere in there. And just being like, at first just telling the worst story, like probably raped, probably by one of my white ancestors. But then I was like, wait, why would they still be in my family then? You'd have to be really, really rich to keep a mixed race baby at the time that this probably happened, you know? And something that I've always felt since I was really little, because my family's from the Blue Mountains down there. Like, I remember when I was little, my mom be like, Last of the Mohicans was filmed in like our great grandma Mama's backyard, you know? And I was like, cool.
Western North Carolina.
And like, that's all like that, though that version of Appalachia is a lot of where the Irish black native constituency was happening. And I don't have any native in my blood, but it's like, I know that the level of poor and wild that happened there actually totally had room for the other story, which is that this was could very well have been consensual. And the reason the baby was kept was because what the hell's the difference between a poor Irish person and a poor black person in the 1700s, you know? They could have been working the same farm. And so I'm sitting there holding both of these stories, and it's like, oh, well, wouldn't you love to tell that story? And I'm like, it's not a victimizing story. It's a story that if I look at all the pieces of my history, makes the most sense, actually, you know? And when I was sitting with her, like, that came up for me, and realizing, like, when you don't have access to stories, actually the stories you tell, even to yourself, are super duper important. And knowing that I don't know either way, but that with all the information I have, I actually can just as easily and truthfully, probably more so, tell the story that at one point, one person in my highly Irish family, you know, someone had a baby with this West African person, and that baby was loved, taken care of, made its way to adulthood, and was able to procreate further into the family line, you know? And so they lived in a community that could do that back then. And that feeds what I've always felt and known about my family, which is that there were the Irish people that stayed in the squalor on the coast, and there were the Irish people that within less than a generation said, fuck this, and ran as far inland as they could. They found Appalachia and said, this looks like home, and they stayed.
There weren't a lot of rules out there, too. Like, a lot of the things that were happening closer to the coast, kind of just, they were like, yeah, we're just doing our own thing. We're, like, out here surviving. It was, like, the edge of what was known.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, like, no wonder, I mean, when I think about, like, the wildness in my heart, like, I know that's where it is. Like, the stuff that survived, the last of it before they all became super Christianized and hella racist was out there.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, I know that through the music and through the landscape and through anything in my bones that can feel for something, I've always had this, like, super deep love, like, a respect in my heart for Appalachia, even though, like, I've never gone. I can feel...
You've never been there?
No.
Oh.
No, because my mama died, and then I felt uncomfortable with all my uncles and aunties because they are super, like, really Christian and still kind of racist and all that stuff, and, like, that's what they became. And by the time I cared enough to know that that was important to still behold, like, they were all gone. And now it's, like, all the, you know, cousins twice removed down the line. Like, I don't really have a connection with who's left out there.
Like, do you know what area or town?
Well, they're
or
outside Raleigh, but far
That's
outside.
Where I'm from. My family's been there 6 generations, just north of Raleigh, Durham, like on the border of Virginia and North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
More the Piedmont, so I guess that sounds more like the Piedmont too.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at my family lines, they've been there forever. They never left there. They just went there and stayed, you know? Yeah.
Wow. I haven't done a lot of looking into mine and a lot of inserting. I don't know. I just been like, I don't know. Partly because I was skeptical of who owns the information when you get your genetic test, but my mom recently did it. I was like, I think I want to look into it more because my family, most everyone has stayed in that same area for like 5 or 6 generations.
Yeah.
And
which is to say that our families have probably exchanged something at some point.
right, I know. It's
Because
like,
back then, it was like everybody knew fucking everybody.
like just some of the stories, like my grandpa, who's 95 now. The farm I grew up going to, his farm was my great grandparents' farm, his parents' farm. And they bought that. They were sharecroppers on my dad's side. My great grandparents on my dad's side, who had thousands and thousands of acres that was given to them free, land grant by England. So it's like this land was held by both sets of my ancestors, in some way. And they both had slaves. My dad's side, they were richer and they had more slaves, and my mom's side, they had less slaves. But it was like, it's intense. Maybe because it's been like, should I go there? Should I look into that more? You know? But there's like little family cemeteries in the woods. You wander like, oh, that's my ancestor cemetery right
that's
there.
That's so rad.
Yeah. So there's that too for me. Like, oh, it's just obvious that I should go there in certain ways, and like tend to the place. Like there's a lot of like this sense of the toxicity, the like enslavement of people and the enslavement of the land that my ancestors have been responsible for. That I don't know, what responsibility do I have to work with that since I can,
Yeah.
to like turn that, to like let certain things die and end. A lot of the cultural things there that we've always had, like the connection to food and all these things, are kind of dying now because no one can farm. Because farming was like the key core part, right? Growing all your own food, and then you had your cash crop.
Yeah.
So most people my age are like leaving or like work at Walmart pretty much.
Yeah. Right. It's going to fall apart.
Yeah, but then I think that falling apart is a good thing for the land and for like the toxic social structure. Yeah, and that something else needs to merge up, and it's too far from a city for it to become suburbia. A lot of farms get like split up into pieces, and then all these weird houses get put on.
That's what's happening here.
Yeah.
All the homesteads are getting broke down into smaller and smaller parcels, and it's hard for people to see it yet, but I can see it. Like how that town's growing, how the sky is becoming lighter at night, how everything's changing. And for people in Seattle, it's not a big deal for them to drive over here and commute because of how bad traffic is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like an hour and a half from Richmond, an hour and a half from Raleigh, where I'm from, and people just don't do that as a commute. I don't know. And it's like nothing that special about that area. There's a lake that was made from the Roanoke River. They dammed it, you know, Car Lake or whatever. And that people sometimes have second homes right on that lake, but like they're not in the area in general.
Yeah.
But I don't really have a lot of connection to, like, you know, when you get into western North Carolina, more in the mountains, there's Appalachian folk music, and medicine has this very Afro-Irish, like, Cherokee thing that's very unique. And then once you get moving to the Piedmont, I feel like this sense of, like, I don't see that as visible as it is tucked into the hollers and the mountains, you know, like kind of almost like preserved there in some ways, like especially a lot of the music. And then I didn't hear music growing up in the Piedmont, even though I'm from this place. It's really rural, and people just didn't play music in the same way, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe they did, but
Right. It's all about the process of conquest.
yeah. So, but you know, just because I haven't seen it doesn't mean it's not there, you know.
I'd like to go back there someday. Maybe I'll follow you one day. I don't see any other way I'm ever gonna make it except to get in someone's truck and be like, fine.
There's
let's
a lot
go
of
do
really
it.
sweet people living out there, and I have some friends that have like land and homesteads like out in the hills, especially Madison County, where a lot of the ballad songs came from. I dated someone for a while who made banjos and lived in the holler that a bunch of the ballads came out of, and he played them. He made the banjos and he played them. You know.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people holding that, and like that's like becoming more of a thing, and there's a lot to explore with that. Too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. Wild woman, yawning cave, heaving chest, clear mountain lake, wild woman, serpent's grace, love to kiss your flowering face, love to kiss your flowering face. Remember what we named the Devil's Garden was eaten to a grandmother. Oh, I beg her pardon, her sacramental seedlings, these prayerful perennials who could mediate our healing, but the wild soils of wild woman, yawning cave, heaving chest, clear mountain lake, wild woman, serpent's grace, love to kiss your flowering face, love to kiss your flowering face. Remember what we named the Devil's Garden was eaten to a granddaughter. Oh, I beg her pardon, her sacramental seedlings, those prayerful perennials who could mediate our healing, undulating dance of the wild waters who remember the unaltered, purifying force of the wild fires who remember siren songs the ancients send. Then you're running for the mountains on the wild winds of wild woman. You're on the cave, heaving chest, clear mountain lake, wild woman, serpent's grace, love to kiss your flowering face, love to kiss your flowering face, love to kiss your flowering face. Wild woman. Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah, that one's for you, even with the tractors.
Yeah. There's an irony in that, you know.
Oh, sure is. I was like, would have been better if I sang you the coyote song because it fits right in with the escape of human. Darling. A little wet hanger. A little rectangle? Yeah. Can I have a little wet hanger?
Want to see that little?
Yeah, that was sweet. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that one came when I was hanging out with Finn at some point in the past, and I was just getting kind of tripped out by how, because the white folks down there on the Snake near Hell's Canyon, right? It's Hell's Canyon, which is hilarious because the Nimipu call it the happy hunting grounds. They're like, you could put a baby out here and they would survive on their own. It's like the coolest, most abundant, amazing, giving, wonderful place. But because it wasn't subduable, because it was so difficult to make a homestead there, it must belong to the devil.
That's why we call Nevada no man's land, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though plenty of people were and are there.
That's right.
And there's plenty of food, but it doesn't, well, in that sense of it feeling vast and unknown to the people who colonized it,
Yeah.
you know, the white people that colonized it were like, okay, this must be not useful to what we think land should be, or a relationship to the land should be.
If it resists God's will that I subdue nature, then it must be of the devil. Mm-hmm. Okay. Great, guys. Yeah, so then you start learning, if it says devil's anything on a map, go visit. Mm-hmm. It's probably the shit.
But wait, you were saying something about, you started talking about this because the song is related to you spending time in Phoenicia near there or something?
Well, so we were down in Hell's Canyon at one point. It was a fatedly tragic trip. Our horse fell off a cliff like 3 days into actually being in Hell's Canyon. And, we'd been preparing for like a month and a half. And, well, we showed up early because she said to. We were ready. It took everyone else a while to get ready. God damn it. I'm so bad at this. And, yeah, so we finally got out there.
I'm mad at that too.
And 3 days in, this old-ass horse that she let us borrow because we didn't have too much to pack on it fucking fell off a cliff at what they're calling starvation camp now because there was like hardly anything for the horses to eat. And we couldn't split up. We were only a couple days in. We had so much gear, and so we couldn't really put it on anybody else. And so we backed out and went somewhere else. But yeah, just realizing, like, it hit me so hard how gentle. I mean, Hell's Canyon wants to eat everybody and everything, but she's also, if you're paying attention, like, so giving and so gentle, and, you know, has hidden camps that never get snow that you can be in all winter. You can live all year with her if you can handle what that means and really, like, succumb completely to her seasons. And yeah, spending time with the ancestral gardens and just realizing how unbelievably foolish people were. This comes up for me with the buffalo too. Like, you had the ultimate fruit of the earth and you killed it and sequestered what was left of it so you could put cows out. And now cattle farmers are struggling to keep their heads up, even with all of the subsidies they're given, to keep an animal that's not even quite as tasty and totally fucks the land. Just like really holding that in my consciousness blows my mind. And it's a similar thing where it's like you're so attached to the potato that you gave up what was here already, like a perfectly functional, gorgeous hoop.
And killing all the coyotes too to keep all the cows protected, yet the coyote population has never gone down, ironically. Even though that doesn't mean we should keep killing them. It's funny how no matter how hard we try, they're like, no, you need to relearn.
Yeah, I made Granny a patch once that she put on the back of her shirt, her war shirt, that's got a coyote and a bitter root on it. The last time I saw her, she was like, I thought a lot about that. It's kind of perfect, because we talk about how coyotes kind of like, because they're a threshold keeper, they're like this mirror species. Mm-hmm. So what you do, you know, has this like effect, right? And it's like, we're pushing this hard and it's coming back, just back, because it's like the more you disrupt, the more abundantly we're going to respond, because it's important for us to maintain this
equilibrium, or duality, you know.
Yeah.
Or constantly fluctuating duality. Yeah.
Mama, have you seen that?
What?
Have you seen someone do that?
I'm having a bit of tobacco over here, but when I'm done, I'll help you.
You should help.
You should help. You should be patient. Try to do it yourself.
Go with her to...
He said who?
Oh, who should help?
Are you talking about the sand on them?
I want to go to Hell's Canyon and meet up with her. I'm going to go study with the bookbinder for a couple weeks.
Nice.
Yeah, Jim Croft.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That'd be beautiful.
And it's not that far from Hell's Canyon, but I wonder, she doesn't have horses anymore. I wonder how she gets in there. Like, she just people just walk in, or they just do a camp closer to the...
There's a high road that you can take, and you can, you know, there's the road on the Idaho and the Oregon side that go along the Snake for a while. So there's a lot of places you can reach by road around Hell's Canyon. There's a point where, you know, it becomes wilderness and you can't, but she does it all car camping now.
Yeah.
Breaks her heart, you know, but that's that lack of community. Like, she couldn't do it on her own anymore. It was really hard. And now 3 of her horses live with us, because Josh lives with us. And like Vitiligo, his paint has walked like 30,000 miles. He was with her. He was born when she was doing her wagon train. Wow. And she already had a double wagon, but then she got a little trailer and hitched it to the back and made a little cage, and during the day she'd put him on there because he was too young to walk that far, you know. And his mama, Katie Kisaba, she was like one of her lead driving horses.
Wow.
Yeah, I feel really blessed that I got to meet Granny when it's like towards the end, you know, and still got to see and learn a lot. I learned so much with her and her horses, not just about packing, but about like how the things you have to do to actually live that way now, You know, I learn more about cop interactions from her. It's like one of those little side pockets. It's like, how do you deal with the fact that people are going to call cops on you everywhere you go? You know,
Because
and
you
not
look
let it
weird.
knock you down, basically.
I've known her for a while, and we've like talked over the years, but I haven't ever really got to spend a whole lot of time with her. In this gathering, I just like kind of really hung with her a lot, and it was good.
Yeah.
I've been slightly like, should I?
That's that medicine thing, man. She's pretty
Yeah,
caustic, but
but
it's a good one.
Something like switched over in me. I'm like, okay, yeah. Because I'm often out there by myself and doing my own version, but not like what she's doing, you know. So it's nice to feel like, oh, I have a lot to learn from this person, and like I don't know these Lamations or biscuit roots. I don't know them that well, and I don't know. She's not probably gonna be around that much longer. When you think about it, I don't know, maybe, but
Yeah.
it's like,
She wishes she could be dead already in some ways, but tell her your genes are too good for that. If you're from the old stock, man, you're going to survive through all the things you do to your body. Still being fed.
yeah.
That nourishment's so crucial.
This episode of the Ground Shots podcast was produced by Opia Creative. Our music is by Mother Marrow. If you'd like to help us continue to make this audio project a reality, consider becoming a monthly supporter on our Patreon page at patreon.com/ofsedgeandsalt, where we have rewards like entry into patron-only giveaways, additional audio interviews, extra educational content, and much more. You can also share our work and give us a review on iTunes. Visit our website at ofsedgeandsalt.com to see what else we're up to and a log of our episodes when they come out. Check out our show notes for information about how to find us and our guests. Until next time, y'all, thanks for listening.